wanted for this piece, you know, was for people not to really think about it and be taken, you know, through this journey of color and not really think about it much, you know.
All the pre-production started in London. We have a studio in Stockwell. We took over the basement and set up a couple of small animation desks where animators would test everything out of plasticine.
When we saw the script for the first time, we just thought it was insane.
We decided on this vehicle, which is play-dho or animation, and we said, okay, let's go and do it in the street and see how colorful, how big, how playful it can be.
We're going back to a period of time in the history of animation where people were just going for it and were going, and you know, they were having fun with plasticine. And I didn't think all sleek and nice and smooth. The important bit was story and good movement.
We tested everything, and we tested other things that never even appeared. We spent a month just in the studio testing, and then the script would get rewritten based on what we'd seen in the tests, and then the test would spark an idea, and Frank would say, well, what about bringing those three elements together and doing that?
We also tried to animate the stuff in the studio in a way that would replicate the way it'd be animated on set.
We spent quite a while just playing around with different designs and looks, and trying to find something that was not too sophisticated. It's all really quite old-fashioned stop frame techniques. It's nothing sort of state-of-the-art about it.
The animation itself was very much sort of rehearsed, whereby we spend a week with a bunch of animators doing it again and again and again until they can do it in their sleep. Sort of work it a bit more like a boot camp for animators rather than a carefully considered studio shoot.
We had, I think, about 40 animators, which came from England and Canada and New York and everywhere, who were all sort of rehearsed, and I was totally relying on passion and the animators to have cracked it. Because it didn't really, you couldn't tell until you were shooting it whether it was working or not. Mind-numbingly complex at times.
What we got in the mail was we got that little bunny up there, the green thing, and we were told to make it 30 feet tall. Just to make it out of foam with a wood interior, and we'll take it to location and we'll stack piece upon piece. Then we assemble it overnight in the street, and then they'll shoot it the next day.
Originally the plan was to make all the rabbits out of plasticine or clay. What we found was once we were building a 2-foot rabbit out of clay, it would just be way too heavy for any of the animators to carry. So it was decided we were going to sculpt a 2-foot rabbit in clay and mould them into foam latex, where it would have greater control over the colours and it'd be light enough to move. And would survive the New York heat.
They've got wire armatures for the ears, and also the bodies underneath all the plasticine is a combination of foam and wire, so you can just kind of turn them a little bit like this so that you can look around and the animators can kind of do what they'd like with them. You just kind of rough them in first, and then you go back in and refine them and get them to look as much like their foam counterparts as possible.
The wave, which is made out of wood, will get sprayed with a foam that hardens, and then we'll carve it. And theoretically, there's a metal frame underneath there with a lot of wheels that Paulie designed, and it should roll. We were given a little clay model of the wave, the same thing, where they basically just said, make the center of the wave 10 foot high. And then we scaled it out, and it worked out to be 26 feet and 14 feet deep, which I think was a bit of a surprise to everybody. And then they had to go find a place to stick it in New York City. The night before they shoot, at midnight, we'll drive that into town on a flatbed truck. The city will only let us bring it into town at night with an escort.
the idea of doing stop frame on location with clay, which has a tendency to melt, it just looked insane. But then at the same time, we kind of thought about it again and thought, well, why not? It's Sony animation, and you can do pretty much anything with animation.
You take one frame,
and animators go.
The animators go in, they spend 2 minutes or however long they've got, and it's a very precise amount of time, because with the sun moving and casting these shadows, you want the shadows to travel in a very even way. So the animators have to have a specific time to hit.
They have a tendency to kind of take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
You just go where the bunny tells you to go. So you might end up all the way over there sometimes.
So they have their 2 minutes. They're out. We take the next frame, and yeah, like I say, it's not until you've taken 2 seconds that you see on this playback, it's actually working, but it just looks like a chaotic mess. And so you're just praying for a couple of hours that it's actually supposed to be doing what it's going to do.
Then all the frames from the cameras are being captured directly, and so we get like an HD playback of the animation almost as it's happening. We're trying to do this in a more of a live action way. It's introducing changes into the animation while it's happening, sort of ad-libbing the animation while it's happening, which is quite scary because we don't often know how it's going to look until it happens.
You take a rabbit, say rabbit number 3 out of the sequence, and it's replaced by rabbit number 4 in the sequence. And then that rabbit number 3 that you've taken from here goes into another sequence over there where you take away rabbit number 2 and you put in rabbit number 3. That rabbit number 2 then goes into another sequence over there. So there's never any wasted rabbits. All the rabbits we had are in shot.
We weren't allowed to close the area off to the public, so we had the public walking amongst us. People loved it and they responded really well. We had people walking into shot, picking up bunnies, little kids picking up bunnies, and we'd have to kind of take it off them and put it back on the ground and carry on shooting. And I think you can see that in some of the shots as well, where you kind of picked up people floating through.
I think that thing is mad hot.
So cool. I like him.
That's mad big. I want to touch it.
So some of them will go from purple to blue, others will go from purple to red, and then red to green, and the ones which are on blue will go to green. Then it gets a little bit, well, it doesn't get more complicated, but so it's all about you'll be given a colour to get to and how many frames you've got to do it in.
It was one big experiment from the beginning, and it just, new problems unfolded every day. It was really like no other shoot I've ever done.
Today was, well, we were up until 1:30 working out today, and then up at 5:30 recceing, so it was all last minute. But the hard bit is when you have a certain time frame for the light, and then you have a certain time frame for the animation, and sometimes those two things don't fit. The animation takes longer, or the light doesn't happen, and so you have to rejig. And so, as well as the technical problems, which with 6 cameras simultaneously and everything else is one thing, and then the light and the timings and everything else is another.
It was painful, it was long, it was mostly unmemorable because it happened so quickly. We all came back a little bit shell-shocked because, animators tend to stay in studios and in a very controlled environment. It was really like no other shoot I've ever done, or probably ever will.